Hello, everyone, and welcome to this iteration of our Snap AR live stream. I'm joined today by two fabulous AR engineers on the World AR team, Tons B and Eric, and they are going to walk through our latest template on World AR and all of the fun that involves. I'm also Tyreek. I am a product manager at Snapchat, and I'll be your MC today. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Tons and Eric.
For scale, the template is available in Lens Studio. And this is a series of live streams we've been conducting from the World AR team. We did kind of an overview of our AR tech, including the trackers and World Mesh. And then we dove into custom landmarkers, our custom locations. And now we're going to be covering the city scale technologies. And we have a few more live streams planned after this. And for this one, for city scale, we're actually really interested in explaining the template and how best to use it. It's a very unique location-based AR technology. There's some new APIs, some new areas also of Lens Studio that was developed for this. So we're just going to take our time with the template. We're not going to go deep dive into the code. We just really want to get beginner and intermediate developers up and going well with this template. And if you have any questions, definitely hit us up during the live stream. And believe next is we're going to show some examples of what's happening with location-based AR. And here we have Chinatown and the Tiffany Gallery in London. So these are two examples of an actual location-based experience at the front of a commercial area. So it's storefronts. But notice how the graphics, the VFX, the experience is actually sticking to the building. It's where it's supposed to be as the Snapchatter is looking around and interacting with it. So some of the requirements for tracking here is that the Snapchatter has to be pointing their camera, their phone at the building that they can recognize. And some of the gotchas with city scale that we'll be covering is it's not just like custom locations like the previous one where it's using the camera images it's to track. It's actually using a lot of GPS technology, and we have the city mesh that's available for you as well. And next up,
I'll jump in.
Is taking it.
Okay, I just wanted to stay on this slide a little bit to kind of try to inspire y'all on why to use World AR. If you're a creator that normally focuses on like face self-expression AR, you could think of World AR as something that expands the type of use cases you can make for even like other clients, or if you're a city, you can celebrate like an event or a holiday, you can activate a storefront, you can create a digital like art walk or art exhibition, or highlight the history of kind of an area around you. So it kind of just opens you up to being able to make AR for other types of education or celebration. Okay, so what is city scale AR? City scale AR is similar to what Eric has already taught in past live streams, but you don't have to scan anything yourself. Snap has already gone ahead and scanned 3 cities: London, Zone 1, downtown LA, and Santa Monica. So this city scale AR technology is currently available in those 3 places. And as you can tell in these pictures, we've reconstructed what all the buildings look like outside, and then it allows you to accomplish on any of those streets in the city in Lens. So the third GIF is something that a creator made where it's surfacing reviews of the restaurants kind of on where those restaurants actually are as you're walking around. Okay. And some examples we've made internally at Snap have been focusing on kind of like city pride use cases. So in London, there was an art show with LGBT artists that you could walk around a specific block of London and see their art placed throughout. In Santa Monica, we highlighted the history of this like historically black and brown like business hub that got displaced. So you can now see like the archival photos and stories of that neighborhood while walking the blocks where they actually were. And in Los Angeles, we've activated Little Tokyo during their annual Nisei Week festival. We created like a stamp rally where you go to areas of importance within the city and are guided to like collect stamps throughout. So these are just kind of some examples to get you thinking of what to do. And if you also can just be playful if you're not trying to get into the serious depths of city engagement. These are some examples from our creator Arthur, who is also posting with Snap like a YouTube tutorial on how exactly he made this lens. So you can look out for that as well. Oh yeah, and this is just one last example of something Lego made that's also just kind of for fun, where you can turn cities into theme parks by like drag and dropping different like Lego attractions onto the buildings. Okay. That's all for the city scale intro. Hopefully you're hooked. Eric, should I go ahead and go to Lens Studio now?
Oh yeah, we're diving in now.
Okay.
That was the tease. Let's go.
Okay. Okay, so this is Lens Studio 4.49. Make sure you use that version so that you see the same template as me, because what we're about to look through is like kind of a new revamped version of the template. Okay, so if you go in this template search and go down or start typing city scale, you should see in under templates, city scale AR. So let's just load that up. Woo. Okay. Oh no, it loaded up in a weird screen.
There you go.
Okay, you can see it? Okay, cool. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is just the panels and what are we even looking at right now. With City Scale AR, it's really important that you have this map tab open. That's what's down here. That's showing London, and it might not be open by default on your Lens Studio, because your Lens Studio would just default to whatever tabs you usually have open. So if you don't see that, go up to Window, Panels, and then just click Map right here, and it will pop up. So,
hey Tons, before we continue, we actually have our first question.
Okay, what's up?
And it's about the three examples you showed. So I believe the announcer is pronounced Zulipa, has a question about this being available only in the US and London currently. Can you share more on that and the regions that this is available in?
Yeah, well, okay, so when we launched this feature, the first city that was launched was London, and then basically as years go by, we're like releasing new cities. So right now you're correct. The only public cities are the US and London, but we are planning to like continue on the path we've been going down to like release new cities in the future and near future.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's dive in back to the panels. So we have the map tab. It's in London right now. If you want to do the other cities, OMG, sneak preview that. Don't worry about this. But yeah, you have Los Angeles and Santa Monica here too. Oh, okay. Yeah, so you can switch this here. So now I switched to Los Angeles. And now I switched back to London. So this map tab is important, and you can zoom in and out on the map tab to go to the exact street you want to place content on. And this blue icon is where you currently are. So in the scene view, you're going to see these buildings here. And if you click somewhere else on the map, it's going to reload the buildings based on where you have clicked in the map.
So I guess be patient. It takes a while to load up those meshes.
Yeah, it does. They are a lot of data.
Another question for you. How often do these meshes get updated? Because as you can imagine, there are new attractions that come up in big cities.
Yeah. I don't think they get updated like super often, but right now they're not that outdated because, they're like fresh within a year. So yeah, I guess we haven't like been out for long enough to already have to refresh yet.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you just drag along the maps real quick? That was I never noticed that you could just drag that marker. You were like making the mesh move in the scene view.
Oh, in the scene view, I'm just zooming in and out. And as you zoom in and out in the scene view, yeah, it's kind of weird, but this little camera icon moves to try to kind of show you where you are in relation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, good call out. Okay, so the other main thing that you might need to, now let's focus in on the scene view. When you open your Lens Studio, maybe your scene view is gonna be like exactly at the origin of 00 down here. And you're gonna be like confused and like, OMG, there's no city mesh. Just like note that the 000 in city scale AR land is kind of sea level. So usually the actual meshes are going to be higher up. So just, look up, zoom out, and then you'll find it. This is what I'm talking about right now. This issue is also happening in the preview panel. In future version of Lens Studio, we're fixing it so that it'll kind of already spawn you at a bird's eye view. But just for now, in 4.49, this is what the preview panel is going to look like when you open. And now let's talk about how to move around the preview panel. So a lot of you, especially if you've been focusing on face lenses, you may not have had experience with the interactive preview tab. You may only be used to like this kind of like face view of the preview. So make sure that your preview panel is set over here to interactive preview icon. And then you can right click to kind of rotate around, and you can use, similar to if you're playing a video game, like WASD keys to like move around in the preview panel. And by the way, all these hotkeys are listed in the like Lens Studio docs guide for this template. So if you don't remember, you can look there. But one thing to also note is that the city mesh is up there, and to get there down here, we have this Y with a lock icon. If it's locked, you won't be able to move the camera up and down.
Real quick, the little right side is chopped off. I don't think it's going to be fixable, but it's okay. Their mouse is right to the right of the edge of the screen, and there's these little lock icons and a Y icon. Oh.
Sorry, I'm minimizing just to kind of show.
There it is.
Like this icon is what I'm talking about. So unlock it. And then another pro tip, since these meshes are like really huge, you might want to make your camera movement speed faster. So you can press this hamburger menu and then camera speed, and then go to fast.
Yeah, that's a big one. And it's hidden too.
It is really buried in there, yeah. So now, if I press space, I can just go straight up. And then I can do WASD, or also the arrow keys work if you have arrow keys on your keyboard, to move around to like a more reasonable place.
You just went up. So I forget, was that space bar?
Yeah, up is space. Okay.
Down
Technically, you could go up by just pointing up and pressing forward too, because when you're doing the arrow keys or WASD, it's just gonna forwards just like whatever direction you're looking. Okay. So now that we've kind of like navigated all around and we've talked about the three main panels that you're going to be working with, which is the map panel, the interactive preview, and the scene panel, shall we move on to going through what's in this template?
Yeah, real quick, the down was left control, right? I I forgot which, because this is up and down's
Oh
low.
yeah.
Okay.
I pretty much like never use down because I always forget what it is. But yeah, it's left control. But you can just like point down and go straight too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. What's next?
Okay, so now we can go through the actual template and what's like unique about it. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on the objects panel now. So the first thing is just like letting your Lens Studio project know that you're even trying to use city scale, which is we're doing that in this template by having device tracking world on the camera to kind of let the project know to turn on ARKit or AR Core or the tracking that's happening in the background on your device. And then in terms of tying it to your GPS location and doing the tracking to recognize where you are, we're adding this device location tracking component with location asset world. And this already exists in your project, but if you're curious of where that comes from, location asset is a resource type, and then world is one of the types that you can choose. I don't know if you can see these like drop downs popping up. Okay, cool. Yeah. And then the last thing to note is that this camera far plane is set really high. I think by default, if you make a new camera, this number is going to be maybe like 1,000 or 10,000. But since we're in a city and the city block is so huge and you maybe want to be able to have these meshes block AR content, you know, throughout this entire grid, then we're going to bump up that the camera is allowed to see farther away. So it can see up to 100,000 units away in city scale. And while we're on that topic, whenever someone's in the city and they open up your lens, they're only going to load the closest like 9 little mesh squares around them. So pretend the city mesh is like a quilt, and this middle square that I highlighted is where the camera is. So it's going to get your GPS location. It's going to know, oh, that means you're somewhere in this middle patch of the quilt. And based on, you know, since you could look any direction around you, we're also going to load in these like other, you know, all the squares are on the side of you. So you end up with like a 3x3 grid. And the reason that's important is because if you wanted, let's say off in the distance over here is like some huge building, and you want to see like King Kong being blocked by that huge building when you're looking from over here, that's not going to happen. The only stuff that's like blocking AR content or like occluding it would be stuff that's already loaded in. And what's loaded in is only ever going to be like this many meshes around you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay,
and
cool.
Just quick, since most buildings are kind of like a cube, I'm guessing you could look at that city block and just make a cube that's the size of the shape of whatever building you want to block King Kong if you did want to.
Right, yeah. If you had a specific area where you're like, there's this movie theater and I want to make it so that people are like using the lens from there, and then we'll bring that up actually in example 1 of how to do that, because you would have to anchor that cube to only that location located at component to block King Kong. But yeah, you're right, you could do it. Okay, so that's how this project knows that we're in city scale mode, is that we have these set. But now that we're in city scale mode, we need to actually load in the city mesh. And so that loading in of the city mesh happens up in here inside of city scale meshes. So this already exists in the template for you, but just so that you can understand what's going on in the template, this custom component is what makes the city mesh that you saw in the scene view that I just lost show up. Okay, there it is. And it's a custom component because only custom components get to like execute code in this scene view. So you pretty much like don't have to edit this at all. It's just going to do its thing and just show wherever you are. And it's just putting an unlit material. But this is only for the scene panel. It gets deleted for your lens. So don't worry about it like flooding your lens. As far as what shows in the lens, that's created from this script, city mesh in lens, and you can decide what material you want to show on it. So for now, it's the scanning material that has a lot of other functionality that we'll get into when we talk about the examples. Yeah, and it has options like you can use physics, but you don't have to change any of these options. Okay.
Tons. And Eric, we have a question that if it takes us down a rabbit hole, we can save it for the end, but I think it's a really good question. So it's from Krunal. What exactly needs to be done to support other cities globally? Can that be crowdsourced to communities or folks? Like, I'm assuming they mean like the LiDAR meshes or city scanning. Is there anything that we can tap into the community for?
Yeah, like what the scans that the community already takes to make their own like custom location lenses and stuff, like technically is a similar approach to what we're doing in city scale. But as you can see, the city scale, the mesh that loads in has like the entire building, right? But when you yourself are taking like your own community scan, you're limited to like the LiDAR range, which is like 5 meters. So those scans wouldn't like get the entire huge building. So those, we are looking into how to use those to like improve or update areas of the city mesh that might need improvement, or like, yeah, maybe start to have those be shared on a more like global type of map. But there's a lot of work involved to kind of like get it all on the same level. So it's not like out right now or having an exact announced timeline or anything. But yeah, I'm glad you're thinking like that, because that's kind of like the road. That's our goal, is that we would be able to eventually have creators be able to contribute wherever they want to a more publicly accessible creation set. So thanks. Okay, so I think now let's dive into the actual examples of how to do stuff. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you open this template, the main thing that you would want to care about is not any of the stuff I said before necessarily, but just these examples. So with the example, we have, the template includes 3 examples, which is, the first one is anchored content, which is what these pins are that show up on the map. So you can pick the city closest to you. And if, let's say we're going to focus on London today, I can delete these Santa Monica and like downtown LA ones since they're not relevant. But let's try to have it show up. So right now the anchored content I have is like about these balloons. So I clicked this city where the pin is, and the pin is something I created myself by just like double tapping wherever on the map that I want to put content. So let's say I want to put content like also over here. I can double click here and you can see now it says pin, and it created a pin in the inspector view.
You could move your camera too, and the mesh updated.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So now it moved this blue circle here. So that's now what's loaded up. And I can bring this pin. I just can drop it into basically this AR content folder. Anything you put in this AR content folder is going to get hidden until the location is found. So you don't have to worry about like making code that does that. So anyway, I already created these pins. So let's focus on those. And what you do is you just, when the tile pops up on the where the pin is you created, you can add any your 3D content and just make sure that your 3D content is a child of the pin. So that's how it knows to be positioned relative to the exact like, mesh tile of the city. So if you open up these pins, you'll be able to see like all the 3D content that's here.
Actually, I never thought about this, but if you had a pin in that like top corner tile, if you just had that content, that pin, that's the center tile, right? So there would be city mesh like around it. Yeah. So you have.
Sorry, I don't fully get what you're asking.
So you had pins that were in different little tiles, right? This one here.
Yeah.
Then if you move down a little bit in your view, you had the pins like that guy.
Oh, like for example, this. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that would have the mesh center up around that. right? If that
I
was the
guess
active one.
a way to understand this, is like in terms of what you're seeing in the scene view. In the scene view right now, you're only seeing these tiles because I clicked specifically around this pin. So this is kind of the same as if you were out in the wild standing at this exact location. So if you're out in the wild standing at this exact location, the current city mesh you see is the only city mesh that's going to be like blocking stuff, kind of like how we said in our King Kong example.
Right.
But this other AR content back here that's like technically tied to this other pin is still going to load and be positioned, because as soon as your like location has been determined, all these pins can already know where their content like should be.
Okay.
Yeah. But you could, if you want, like make additional code that's like checking, how close am I to this located at component? And if I'm not that close, just straight up hide all that content if for some reason you like didn't want to already have it all showing.
So there's some way to there's like a method or something on that pin that says how far you are if you want to ping it.
Yeah, like kind of the same, like in range. It's like in the API of located at component, it'll be like distance,
right,
proximity, I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then if you want to check in the preview, you'll see that the preview right now has like title screen and hints, which we didn't fully go over yet. But where are they?
With the title screen?
I'm going to go up into the sky to find, there they are.
Oh, the guy.
Yeah. So now I can kind of like approximate what it looks like in the preview. And yep, there, the fool is right there. So one thing to note is that this preview, the mesh in the preview, you might be like, wow, this texture really does not look good. Like looks like a ghost town version, and you would not want to show this on device. That's true. And so what this material does, just to like let you know, is if you go inside of here to material parameters, there's this advanced parameter, show city texture on device, that you're going to see. This is unchecked by default. So don't worry. If you push this to your device, preview on device, and are in the city, you're not going to see these textures. You're only going to see like the scanning gold line on top of what your camera view's already seeing. Because in real life, your camera will already see the buildings. We don't need to draw the buildings on top of it. These kind of like textures are just for reference in Lens Studio only. Okay, so I guess before we go to the next example, I want to talk about the title and hints. Is that chill?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay. So this title screen right now just says like my lens name. So please just replace this with your own content. And you might be asking like, why do you have a title screen? And it's because with this kind of content, since location AR needs to know where you are before it can show the AR, it means that when a Snapchatter opens your lens, at that point, we don't know where the Snapchatter is yet, so we don't know where to place the AR. So if you don't have a title screen, then what you're gonna see is this instruction: aim your camera at nearby buildings to help recognize your location. And this instruction is not the most like engaging, enticing thing. So if a Snapchatter sees this, they might just be like, okay, well, why would I do this? I can just like move on and do something else. So in most of the experiences that we talked about, the example ones that Snap has already made, we don't start with that. We start with some title screen that already says like, Lego 40th anniversary, and it has all these AR Legos floating around everywhere, and then says like create your own theme park to try to get you excited, so that by the time you like have to scan and look around, you already know like why you're doing it, and you're already stoked on doing it. So we made this kind of template title screen for you, where you can go inside of here and you can replace any AR content you want inside of here. And any of this AR content will just be let me go back down here. World tracking AR. So it has nothing to do with where you are. It'll just kind of like spawn wherever you open the lens and just be tracked like regular basic AR. So you can replace this with content relevant to your lens. And then you can swap out this text with any kind of like UI that you want about your lens. If you have your own logo or you have your own title and description, you can totally delete this and put anything else you want. And anything you put here, this title screen script will already take care of like showing it, hiding it, having the start button trigger, etc. Yeah, so that's the title screen. And then as far as the hints, you might have noticed that I like showed you guys this hint. This is automatically, all these hints are automatically taken care of once you're on device. In Lens Studio, if you want to just are curious about what the different hint states are, there's location far, which is what happens if you're not within the city bounds. Location near, which shows when you're in the city bounds. And then location troubleshooting, which shows if it's been like a long time and the Snapchatter still hasn't been able to like establish location, it gives some hints. And the actual UI for each of these is included inside of this hint controller object. So if you really are going above and beyond and you made this like, I don't know, forest theme lens and you want everything to be green and have like really elfish font and whatnot, you can go in and like swap this or edit these hints technically to like match the aesthetic of your lens or provide more specific details about where to go and what to look at to establish tracking. Okay, but yeah, generally you can set this and by default it will be set to full flow. And so that you get the title screen, the safety message, and then in Lens Studio, it'll just go straight to location being found since we already know where you are. Okay, Eric, should I go into example 2?
Yeah, no, we're moving at a really nice pace here. And I think it was really good that you went and covered the UI and the title screen.
Okay, tight. So these next 2 examples are like taking it to the next level. So this anchored content example, you only can look at it from that exact city block and it's specific to that neighborhood. But what if you want to make something that can be done in anywhere, no matter where you are, as long as you're within the city scale scanned cities? You can do that. And so one example that we came up with to help you think about doing that is this one's kind of based on the Lego lens where people can tap on buildings to like instantiate stuff, which means to just spawn stuff. So let's say you're obsessed with snakes and you want to have people be able to like spawn snakes on the building. We have an example with balloons where anywhere you tap, if it's on a building, it's going to like spawn a balloon there. And if you want to swap out what's being spawned, like you have your cool snake prefab, you can put that, just swap it out here. And if you want to adjust the scale that it's spawned at, that can be done here. And so you might be wondering in this case, why are there like a bunch of pluses on the buildings and why is the bottom red? That is all like optional, but it's just showing the options that this material supports. So use pattern. The pattern is just kind of to show a grid of all the options of where you could place stuff. And this red portion is to discourage people. It's kind of like an area where you're not allowed to spawn stuff. So you can see if I click down there, it doesn't spawn. And that's to just, if you want to discourage people from spawning stuff below eye level or places where, for example, if cars drive in front of it a lot or people walk in front of it a lot, those cars and people will always like be rendered behind your AR content because this AR filter is not like segmenting for cars or for people to like know what depth they're at and like make sure they show up in the right place. So it would break the illusion. So if you want to like try to make sure your illusion is not going to be broken, it is more likely that it won't be broken if you spawn stuff higher up. But if you don't care, you can always uncheck use interaction height. And then that will go away and you're allowed to spawn wherever. And if you don't like this like ripple animation, you can uncheck use tap animation, and that will also go away. But that was just kind of to give feedback about like where you tapped on the building. And again, you can uncheck use pattern, and then it'll just be the regular, just a yellow stripe scanning. So each example has their own like settings of the material in here just for the template purposes. But let's say you want to just make your own thing from scratch. So you deleted all these examples, but you still want to update the material. You can do that here. So whatever you set here will take over, but since this template had 3 examples and each example had like a different material setting that looks ideal for it, I just added this additional forwarding script. So this forwarding script would like override whatever is set up here. Okay. Yeah, so that's like spawning content.
So the red area is based on the device's height, right? So like even if you're moving around the editor and that red area gets high, the user's not going to see that.
Right, exactly. It's like this like ground Y estimation script is just doing it based on where the user's camera is and like that. So up in the preview, like Eric said, if you're like up here, you're going to be like, oh my God, why is like this whole thing, I'm not allowed to place stuff. It's because it thinks like that you're like that you're in a world where everyone's like 30 feet tall. So it would be occluded. But in real life, the user camera is probably going to be down here. So then it will make more sense of the height that it chooses. But again, if you don't need that, you can just uncheck use interaction height.
I guess if you knew that the Snapchatter was going to be at a high level, like at the top of observatory or top of a building, your lens is meant for that. I guess you would want to turn that off then. Exactly.
Yeah, true. Okay, so this last example, that was kind of talking more about ray casting, and in our slides, it has links to the APIs for each of those and guides for those if you're not familiar with like physics ray casting or physics colliders. This example 3 is focusing on collision, and you can see the instruction says touch and hold to spray burgers. So let me reset just so the interaction height pattern goes away. So this is like a tube, and it's just going to launch whatever prefab you give it at the city mesh. And you can see that it does collide with the city mesh. So you could rain down your own stuff. This is just an example that shows these city meshes are already having colliders on them because they're set to have use physics on. And if you are down with this launching and you just want to launch something else, all you have to do is swap burger prefab with whatever your prefab is. So again, you're obsessed with snakes, put your snake prefab here. I guess you pretty much don't need to worry about any of these advanced stuff. But if you did want to, you might have to adjust the strength based on the mass and like size of whatever your prefab is, because it's physics. So if you think about physics, like it's going to take more force to launch potentially your 3D model as it did to launch this burger model. And then you don't have to use the tube if you don't want that visual and you just want stuff to just start spawning without a tube. And just one gotcha to know about here is the physics root world settings. I've already done this for you, but if you're in your own project, these city meshes are really thin. So if you're only checking once a frame for like, did my burger hit the wall of the building? And you're doing math for like, okay, in each frame, if the burger is going this speed, it means the burger would be here or here if each frame is like taking like 0.1 second or something. It might already pass the building, which is called tunneling. So you might miss some collisions. So it's recommended for city scale, any physics stuff, to go in these higher numbers of simulation so that it's more likely that you're going to check at a frame where it is colliding with the mesh, so that you're avoiding what we call tunneling. Yeah. So that's just the main important thing to note there. And if you feel like the speeds aren't reflecting what you think, you can change these, but you probably don't have to. These are just set for you. And I just wanted to call it out for your understanding. Okay, Eric, what do you think?
No, it's a good overview of the tech. I think at this point, maybe it's, I'll just repeat again like the use cases, because it was interesting. It did dawn on me that the three examples, one is like you're actually placing stuff in a designated area, and then the other two is more like it's just fun interactions, but it can be done anywhere in the city. Anything that's interacting with the city mesh, so like placing stuff or shooting stuff with it as a physics collider. But yeah, so there's some weird gotchas I think I'll talk about quickly. There is like the camera object does have two trackers on it, and even though their name's similar, they are kind of doing different stuff. So one is enabling like native AR abilities, and the other one is actually that device location tracker is different. And that you need to create a location asset and it's set to the world. So you kind of have like three like camera tracking type stuff on this one object. And you do have a location asset in here. And it's a little different than custom locations, where in custom locations, we kind of started with that device location tracker and we kind of moved to located at component. And here it's like you create that pin, and it's like almost that's like the located at component. It's like it's like you're like, boom, this is where this stuff is going to be. You're pinning it right to that map, and then all your content goes underneath that. So you can mix in the two. So it's a little different. So it's good to just take note of that.
Yeah, and one thing I guess on that front is like, the pin, this map tab is like your portal to like creating city scale anchored content. You do all your you anchor all your content through here. And if you click any of these pins, it remembers, it has a link to where it is in this outline object panel. So you can click, I want to go to this pin's AR content or this pin, and you can see it highlights the same one. And what you rename it here reflects as the name here. Yeah,
naming stuff, because you can just create pins and they're just like pins.
Yeah, they're just like called pins. So definitely like we'll just like make one randomly here. So then I'm gonna call this one like Waldorf, and then it'll be Waldorf. And then if I'm selecting something else and select back, it'll still have Waldorf selected. And then any 3D content that I want to place, like let's place a box, I guess. Here, note that the box is going to spawn at 000 again, which is like that your like sea level place. So you're going to have to like move it up. And then I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to go in on it.
Yeah, that frame select is going to be useful here.
Okay, so now we like have this cube in Waldorf. And if we go to the preview here, there it is. Woo! So you can make your own anchored content that way if that's all you're trying to do.
You can mix like custom locations and city tech. We don't have a template
so
yet.
Advanced.
But just know that if you're interested, you can leave comments, and we can come up with some new examples. But you can mix the two tracking technologies. And I never thought about this, but could you make content that's in like London and LA, and based on whatever pins get activated, I guess it would play that? So like a lens could potentially run in any city that we have mapped out so far?
Yeah, so like technically this current template as is, if I'm in LA, Santa Monica, or downtown, it'll just like show the relevant content based on where I am, because of like what we were talking about with the located at pins just knowing and showing. The only thing is it does kind of like clutter your project, so you still have to make sure that like your project is under 8 megs or so that it's still allowed. So in this case, I used I was reusing the same meshes in all 3 cities, so is still fine.
Yeah, you can reuse, or I guess you
Yeah.
can use remote assets to download after.
Yeah, you could. Exactly.
Cool. Well, I think this was a really good overview. I don't know if there's any questions from the audience. But one thing I noticed from previous videos is that if you have ideas, suggestions, or questions afterward, if you put them in the comments of the YouTube video, they get sent to us and we can answer them, and they'll get posted back as responses. So we've had quite a few like tech issues or questions from the audience that weren't in the live stream, but you're watching at a later date. But definitely use the YouTube comments. We do read them and respond back. And we're always interested with new ideas for live streams. Any other tech or use cases that you're interested in, we'd always love to hear back from you. Is there any questions in the community?
Yeah, we're not currently having any questions, but I guess, Eric and Tons, here's a question for you all. Given the questions around the US and London being the starting regions that we have this tech for, is there a cadence or frequency at which we expect to be updating and including more geos?
I will say we do have a few more locations or cities that are in the pipe, and it's relatively soon.
And like the more like demand there is, then the more, like we will listen to the people. So if the people are out here making hella city scale, like US and London, and demanding the other city, like, you know what I mean? And it helps.
No, that makes total
drive
sense.
attention toward that.
And I assume that, like if there are big brands that want to do an activation in the city, that also would help prioritize different regions, right?
Right.
Yeah, cool.
And I will say we have some new tool sets coming down the pipe for custom locations as well that will make use of the map tool, and the more that our creators are being able to use the publicly available custom locations, the more that the map will get filled out, and we'll be able to tell which cities are more in demand. So the two techs are kind of going to overlap a lot in this map view. And there'll be a lot more. So you're going to have like more cities, and you're going to have more actual locations, more landmarkers that will be available.
And more tools within your lens to like navigate. Like, let's say if you did have an art walk, even in some of the examples we showed, our internal examples, like in the Broadway neighborhood, we have a map of like, go to these different places, and it'll like show your Bitmoji going around. So there's a lot of like internal things we've released that are looking toward the future of how we want the public to be able to use this technology.
I will say, the more comments, the more active you are in giving us feedback, the more your ideas will actually be included in what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we need to hear from you. But that was a great overview. Thank you so much, Tons. You did a great job.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric and
back to the
Tons.
slides.
So yeah, I guess the takeaway is if you're not using Lens Studio 4.49, make sure you are, because it has the latest template. And stay tuned for announcements, blog posts as we launch and release more, and Lens Studio releases as we add more of the scan maps of big cities or areas to Lens Studio. And then the final takeaway, Eric, was that you said if people start playing around with this and they have questions, where would you like them to post their questions?
Oh, in the YouTube comments of the video?
Got it.
Is the best place, because that's actively being watched. I mean, I'm sure our other channels, I'm sure if you post up on our posts on social media of these announcements of these videos, or on Twitch, we'll get there. But I know firsthand that we get quick turnarounds on the YouTube comments. It comes directly to our team.
It looks like we have a question from Danny. We have time, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like. Is it possible for custom location lenses to unlock when a user is around the location used in the lens?
Yes. So custom locations is using a similar technology. You'll be using these located at components, which Tons was showing as the pins. And there are methods that called on location found, and there's also distance measurements, so you can tell how close the user's getting. But basically, if you have a located at component and it's connected to a location asset that's connected to your custom location ID, if the Snapchatter is looking at it and it's able to localize or track successfully, you'll get that event call and you'll be able to turn on your content. So you can check out the custom locations template and also the video, the YouTube video. We went through it quite extensively. And if you are still stuck, then post up in those comments and we'll start troubleshooting your project. We've done that before, but yes, you can definitely just run your lens when the Snapchatter is on location. So for a custom location, we're talking about like a building, a statue, a monument, something, a parcel, a part of the city scale. It's, something closer to the Snapchatter. Oop, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. We have one more question. I think this is important and will help tie together the entire flywheel. People really want to know, what is the best way to promote a city experience? So for example, if I, a Snapchatter, am walking down, I don't know, Broadway in London, or I'm in Hackney and I have a lens that I've built, how is it promoted? Will it show up higher in my carousel?
Right.
Will I get some notification saying, hey, it's available? What's that experience?
Yeah, right now, it's like the thing that our team is like the number one thing that we want to improve to make it better for Snapchatters who are just like make their own experience to be able to get some kind of like organic promotion in either the carousel or just in the Lens Explorer. There's like a world tab. We're trying to like make the Lens Explorer support creators who used location-based AR based on the Snapchatter's location. But what's currently been being done, like in the examples that I showed, like these 3 examples, they're all like having snap codes on location. So the city itself is like advertising for it. Or they also, like the social media of these cities and the organizations, like posted the snap code. So far it's been most successful when it's like tied to the snap code and people are coming with the intention of doing the experience, not like they're just browsing Snapchat and like trying to send a funny filter to their friends. So yeah, that has been like the top avenue, but we're trying to incorporate world exploration within Snapchat too to like help creators out, but that's still like currently being worked on as we speak, so I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like. So we definitely recommend advertising with your snap code.
Perfect. Thank you both. I think that was our last question, so this is great.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed it and give us feedback.
Yeah.
Post any other questions on the comments of the YouTube video once it goes live.
Sounds good.
All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.